Hey there, happy Wednesday. I am Carmen. I'm super excited to be here. For those of you who do not know me, I am a myofunctional therapist. I'm an educator, a speaker. I teach other hygienists how to be myofunctional therapists. So this is what I do. I educate. I also have a large global practice, so I see clients all around the world and bring this important therapy to them via teletherapy. So my new blog dropped today and it was titled, it's a long one, so I got to look over here at it. It was called Tongue-Tie Diagnosis, a guide to help you understand the complexity of a tongue-tie diagnosis and the importance of evaluating the whole person for myofunctional impairment. So kind of a mouthful. And when I wrote this blog and then also talked about it in my newsletter that came out today, it kind of led me to what I was going to talk about today, and that being my biggest mistake so far. And actually there's two, but one is a bigger mistake, if you will. So I touched on a couple stories in my newsletter on how this blog came about on this guide. So it's a brochure that I send to all providers when I introduce myself to them. So when they get their referral paperwork, all of that stuff, I send this pamphlet. And the reason that is because I had two situations that really stand out in my mind. First was the dentist that I was working for at the time agreed with me when I had somebody, a 6-year-old boy, that had a severe tongue tie. And when I mean severe, I mean almost to the tip. And he told mom that nothing needed to be done unless it really bothered the little boy when he was licking an ice cream cone. So as you can imagine, bam, my head wants to explode. I was so mad. So in that situation, I had to have a conversation mother to mother after my boss left the room. So unprofessional, yes, but completely in line with what I know and what I do. The other situation why this guide came about is because I referred a little boy to an ENT for a sleep study because he had all the fixins of having sleep apnea. That ENT spent about 5 minutes with mom and said, well, no sleep apnea concerns because your kid doesn't snore and he doesn't have tonsil issues. And your kid has a tongue tie, but since he doesn't have a speech impediment that's super bad, you don't need to do anything about it. So it was those two situations that made me create this brochure and thus, talk about it in my blog, because it is complex and it is important that providers leave behind their antiquated thought process. They're closed-minded because realistically, in my professional opinion, there is nothing that we really diagnose these days based on just one thing. We never say, oh, you have this, then this. Typically, it's a handful of things. And so to ever just say that you don't need to do something about a severe tie because unless it bothers you licking an ice cream cone, that is asinine. I'm sorry. Again, so let's just jump into what my biggest mistake is. How about that? And of course, thank God we're talking business because you guys don't have that kind of time to talk about all the mistakes I've made in life. So my first one, and so like I said, there's two. So those two really that I identified is not knowing about myo earlier in my career. And really that is just because I was a hygienist for so many years, and knowing what I know now, it really saddens me or embarrasses me about all the clients who just slipped through my fingers because I could have helped them. I could have helped them make that transformation to being a vital, healthy person. You guys know, I say this all the time, you cannot and you will not just be that absolute healthiest version of yourself when you've got issues. Bottom line. So all of those hygiene patients of mine that I never just really didn't know how to have conversations, or I didn't have the confidence, I look at that as a big mistake. The second mistake that I really am going to dive into here is not pushing parents hard enough to understand this stuff. and to get second opinion. So of course, this doesn't happen now. If you know me, if you follow me, you know that I'm always busting the chops of parents who don't want to help their kids, who have the knowledge and don't want to do anything with it. So I'm not talking busting the chops of parents who don't know anything about this, who come to me with open arms and open mind and open heart that want the best for their kiddo. My biggest mistake is that when I had those parents who just thought, well, I'm just supposed to love Stevie and I'm supposed to just accept him the way he is. Even with his open mouth resting posture, excuse me, even with his severe tongue tie and his speech impediment, those type of things. So if I were to go back and change it, I feel like I would have developed my skills and my knowledge for children first, because when I started my business, I passed on all of the child business because I didn't feel prepared yet to do that. I think I would have probably have done it the other way around so that I could be helping parents. I've had so many parents who I educate them or they get the knowledge somewhere else. You know, they somehow come to me. And I never push them. I never really make such a powerful, or I didn't used to make such a powerful statement and really work to get my message across, because your kid doesn't have a voice. Your kid can't tell you, hey mom, I'm sleeping like poop and I'm having trouble at school and I'm having behavior issues and I'm grinding my teeth and I'm wetting the bed, all of those type of things. So I think really getting parents to understand and do something about their child's impairment and move forward, I think changes the course of that child's life. So there's 6 things, and you guys know this, I've shared with you that we're in the process of finalizing some classes that I'm going to be teaching called Don't Raise Ugly Children. And it talks about the 6 things, and I'm going to be teaching on the 6 things that you should know, or that parents should know about your child's facial development. And so I know that sounds shocking to say something like don't raise ugly kids, but so many parents just don't know. And trust me, they are so pissed off when they get to me and somebody has led them astray or nobody has told them. So I think these are things that they should know. And of course, I'm going to dive into these a lot more when I teach the courses, but when I'm talking about my biggest mistakes and wishing that I had really pushed parents farther, or maybe been a little bit more like, just like, here's the situation. Here's what I see with your kiddo, and here's what you need to do. So those 6 things. First, let's talk about airway awareness. If you have, airway awareness, and then I also have mouth breathing on the list. So if you have a kid who's mouth breathing, who's snoring, who is sleeping with their head back, I mean, you guys, if I had $10 for every time a parent sent me an email when they know their child has concerns, but they're not doing anything about it, I wouldn't have to be here because I would be somewhere else on a beach. If you are a parent and you suspect that your child has some airway concerns, yeah, send an email, but make a phone call, get an appointment. I will tell you this, I was mind blown this morning when I met with somebody whose child has a sleep study coming up. It was originally scheduled in January and it got moved up till October. And I said, with all due respect, can I ask why the sleep study is so far out there? Because, this child definitely has some concerns. And mom said, we have to travel. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 hours, but we have to travel, and this is how booked out they are. So I'm passing that on to you. I had no idea that was a possibility. Here I'm beating parents up over the fact that they're not, getting after it when they know there's a concern, but there's always that. So if you suspect that your child has an airway concern, if they seem like they have trouble breathing, that kind of stuff, if they're mouth breathing, snoring, all of that, you've got to do something about it. That is the first line of defense. I don't want to start therapy with a child until we know that they're getting air. That's the important thing. The next thing that I want parents to be aware of is the importance of a tongue tie. Again, I have had a whole host of parents whose kiddo has severe tongue ties. You guys, I'm talking low-hanging fruit. It's the obvious stuff. And parents, if they don't know that it's a concern, if they did not have any trouble breastfeeding, or even if they did have trouble breastfeeding and they just bopped them over to a bottle, they don't know this stuff. So if you know anybody, share that information, because so many parents don't realize how detrimental it is to the craniofacial development, to the development of the airway. Tongue thrust is another thing that that parents should be able to watch for. If your child has trouble swallowing, or they swallow and they push food out, and they got to poke it back in with their finger, then that's a tongue thrust. I tell you, I will bet the farm whenever somebody tells me, well, I have a tongue tie, but I don't have a tongue thrust, it's just because you don't have any problems from it yet. I wholeheartedly believe that people who have tongue ties have swallowing issues, whether you think you do or not. My oldest client right now is 78, and trust me, really wishes that she had done something or had known about this before. So if you're a parent and you're contemplating doing something about your child's tongue tie, think about what life is going to be like for them when they're 60, 70, 80. This is a huge concern. Okay, so I've already touched on airway awareness, tongue tie importance, mouth breathing, tongue thrust, the importance of early ortho. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It's called orthotropic or something like that. So some people are calling it forwardontics, face forward, anything like that. Early intervention is key here. You can no longer wait until your child is 12 and has all of their permanent teeth to start dealing with myofunctional impairment. I don't care what your dentist says. If your dentist tells you that, this is why we're talking about this mistake, because I didn't used to push parents hard enough and encourage them to get a second opinion. And the same with correct mouth posture. If you see misguided craniofacial growth, if you see this, mouth hanging open, the tongue is down, the kiddo is mouth breathing, those are concerns. So going back to talking about that second opinion, so many of you parents take it as gospel that what your doctor tells you is fact, and in fact, it's probably not. So if you suspect that something is wrong, don't be afraid to get a second, third, or fourth opinion. It makes a big deal. Again, I get clients who will say, well, I talked with so-and-so, and this is what he said. Well, if it goes against what I say here, or what you're reading, what's out there, then get another opinion. So I think that really is going to wrap it up on beating myself up over my biggest mistakes. So if you are a parent and you're listening to this and you suspect concerns with your kiddo, you've got to find your myo person, whether that's me or anybody else. You can go to the bottom of any one of my blogs. Here, I'll put it up here so you can see it. At the bottom of any one of my at least most recent blogs, you can get the self-assessment, the quick assessment tool. This is not going to excuse you from getting an appointment with a myofunctional therapist. This is going to help you get a little bit of information. If Johnny has these concerns, I ask 25 of the most important questions that I will do during an exam. But if you're just not sure about your kiddo, then do this assessment, because in the first 5 questions, you're going to discover, holy moly, Carmen's on to me. Like there's concerns here. So you can do that if you suspect it. But beyond that, you have to see somebody. You've got to find your myo person so that we can help you get a plan. When I do assessments with people, just like, the mom that I was talking about this morning, we've got a sleep study coming up we need to, there's several things that we have to get in place. An exam being one of those. We need to have a tandem care plan so that when this kiddo, or if this kiddo is diagnosed with sleep apnea, we have a plan. We know that this kiddo has a tongue tie, so what are we going to do when? So getting that plan together is super duper important. But you can start with that assessment for your kiddo. Next week, I will be here, same time, same place, and I will be talking about what I'm reading and why you should be too. And actually, this is a reread because it's so powerful. It's something that I read quite often. And last but not least, guys, remember, make sure that you share any information, you follow us. I do have the tongue tie and myofunctional therapy support group. So that's actually really growing. So it's a great place to get questions and stuff answered. If I speak to you and there's something that resonates with you, remember there's a lot of information over on YouTube. We're growing. There's getting to be more information there, and share it. If you have a loved one, if you have a husband, a spouse, your sweetie, whatever. If you suspect myofunctional impairment, you want them to be able to be a vital, healthy person and be the best version of themselves. So have a beautiful day, and I will see you here next week. Bye for now.